The rain was relentless, hammering the roof of the old diner like it wanted to break through. I sat in a cracked vinyl booth, the kind that sticks to your thighs in summer, staring at the coffee in my cup. It was cold now, a thin film of grease forming on top. My camera rested on the table, lens cap off, like it was waiting for something worth capturing. But all I could think about was her. Her laugh. Her hands. The way her voice softened when she said my name, like it was a secret she wasn't supposed to keep. Lynn. That's me. 24, Vietnamese American, scraping by as a freelance photographer in this sleepy Oregon town. I'd been back for 3 months, crashing at my best friend Ellie's place while I figured out my next move. Ellie, with her wild blonde curls and her knack for turning every moment into a story, had been my anchor since high school. But now, every time I walked into her house, my eyes weren't on her. They were on her mom, Claire. Claire was 42, a high school lit teacher with auburn hair cut sharp at her jaw and eyes that held 1,000 unspoken stories. She moved through the world like she was carrying something heavy but refused to let it show. I'd known her since I was 16, sneaking into Ellie's kitchen for late-night snacks. But this summer, something shifted. It wasn't just her smile anymore. It was the way her fingers lingered when she handed me a mug, the way her gaze caught mine and held it too long. It was wrong. So wrong. She was Ellie's mom. Married too, though her husband Tom was always gone, working long hauls across state lines. But wrong or not, my heart didn't care. The diner's bell jingled, snapping me out of it. Ellie slid into the booth across from me, her raincoat dripping. "You look like you're plotting a crime," she said, grinning, shaking water from her hair like a dog. I forced a laugh, tucking my camera away. "Just tired. Late night editing photos." She squinted, unconvinced, then waved for a waitress. "You've been weird lately, Len. Spill it." My stomach twisted. Ellie knew me better than anyone. We'd shared everything, crushes, heartbreaks, the time I came out to her at 17 crying in her car. But this? I couldn't tell her this. How do you say, "I'm in love with your mom"? The words burned in my throat, unspeakable. Instead I shrugged. "Just work stress. Freelance life, you know." She rolled her eyes but let it go, launching into a story about her new job at the library. I nodded along, but my mind drifted back to yesterday. Claire in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, her hands brushing mine as she passed me a plate of pancakes. The air had smelled like syrup in her lavender shampoo. Her laugh was soft like wind chimes when I teased her about her terrible pancake shapes. For a moment it was just us and the world felt right. "Lynn." Ellie snapped her fingers in front of my face. "Earth to Lynn. You're zoning out again." "Sorry," I mumbled, sipping my cold coffee to hide the flush creeping up my neck. "Long day." She leaned back, studying me. "You sure you're okay? You've been all moony. Like you're in love or something." My heart stopped. I coughed, nearly choking on my coffee. "What? No. I'm just distracted." Ellie smirked. "Sure, January, whoever she is, you better tell me soon. I'm your best friend, remember?" I nodded, my chest tight. If she only knew. That night, I lay on the pull-out couch in Ellie's living room, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet except for the faint creak of floorboards upstairs. Claire was probably grading papers in her study, her reading glasses perched on her nose, a pencil tucked behind her ear. I imagined her there, the glow of her desk lamp catching the lines of her face, and my chest ached. I shouldn't feel this way. I knew it. She was married. She was Ellie's mom. She was 18 years older than me. But every time I tried to push it down, it came back stronger like a tide I couldn't fight. I closed my eyes, replaying the moment in the kitchen again. Her fingers grazing mine. The way she'd paused, her breath catching like she felt it too. The floor creaked again, closer this time. My eyes snapped open. Claire stood at the foot of the stairs, her silhouette soft in the dim light. She wore an oversized sweater, her hair slightly mussed, like she'd been running her hands through it. "Lynn." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You awake?" I sat up, my heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. Yeah. Can't sleep. She hesitated, then crossed the room, sitting on the edge of the coffee table. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Me neither, she said, her voice low, almost shaky. I keep thinking about things I shouldn't. My breath caught. Was she saying what I thought she was? I wanted to reach for her to close the distance, but fear glued me in place. Like what? I asked, my voice barely steady. She looked down at her hands, twisting them together. The silence stretched, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Finally, she met my eyes, and the rawness there stole my breath. You know what? She whispered. My heart thundered. I wanted to tell her everything, how I dreamed about her, how her smile was the only thing keeping me grounded, how I didn't care if it was wrong. But before I could, she stood abruptly, her hands trembling. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I shouldn't have, I need to go. She was gone before I could stop her, her footsteps fading up the stairs. I sat there, my pulse racing, the scent of her lavender shampoo lingering in the air. The truth hung between us now, fragile and dangerous, and I knew there was no going back. The next morning, the house smelled of burnt toast and fresh coffee. Ellie was in the kitchen, humming off-key to some pop song on her phone, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I hadn't slept after Claire's midnight confession. Her words, you know what, echoed in my head, each syllable a spark setting my nerves on fire. Did she mean it? Did she feel it too? Or was I reading too much into a moment of weakness? I shuffled into the kitchen, my camera slung over my shoulder like a shield. Claire was there, standing at the counter, her back to me as she poured coffee into a chipped mug. Her shoulders were tense, her movements deliberate, like she was trying to hold herself together. I wanted to say something, anything, but Ellie's presence glued my lips shut. Morning, zombie, Ellie teased, tossing a piece of toast at me. It landed on the table with a dull thud. You look like you got hit by a truck. Rough night, I muttered, avoiding Claire's direction. But I could feel her eyes on me, a quick glance that burned like a touch. Lynn, you gotta stop pulling all-nighters, Ellie said, oblivious, scrolling through her phone. You're gonna crash and burn. Claire turned then, her face carefully neutral. She's right, Lynn. You need to take care of yourself. Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath it, like a crack in a dam. I met her gaze, and for a split second the room faded. Ellie, the toast, the pop song. It was just us, the air thick with what we couldn't say. My throat tightened. I'm trying, I said, the words heavy with meaning only she would catch. Ellie groaned, oblivious. God, you two sound like my mom and dad. Chill, both of you. The mention of Tom, Claire's husband, hit like a punch. Claire flinched, her mug clattering against the counter. She recovered quickly, but not before I saw the guilt flash across her face. I looked away, my stomach churning. Tom. The man who was never here but still loomed over everything. The man who made this, whatever this was, impossible. Later that day, I escaped to the park, my camera in hand, hoping to drown my thoughts in work. The air was crisp, smelling of pine and damp earth, the kind of autumn day that made you want to believe in fresh starts. I focused my lens on a cluster of leaves, their edges curling red and gold, trying to lose myself in the click of the shutter. But then I heard her voice. Lynn. I froze, my fingers still on the shutter. Claire stood a few feet away, her scarf fluttering in the breeze, her cheeks flushed from the cold. She looked out of place, like she'd wandered into a scene she didn't belong in. What are you doing here? I asked, lowering my camera. My voice came out sharper than I meant, but I was raw, exposed. I needed to talk to you, she said, her breath visible in the chilly air. She stepped closer, her boots crunching on the gravel path. About last night. My heart leapt into my throat. Claire, we don't have to. No, we do, she cut in, her voice low but firm. I can't keep pretending this isn't happening. I can't keep pretending I don't. She stopped, her breath hitching, like the words were too heavy to carry. I stared at her, my pulse hammering. The park was quiet, just the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. Her eyes were wide, vulnerable, and I saw it. The same longing I'd been carrying for weeks. "Claire," I whispered, stepping closer. Close enough to smell her lavender shampoo. "What are we doing?" She let out a shaky laugh, almost a sob. "I don't know. I just know I can't stop thinking about you. And it's tearing me apart." Her words hit like a wave, pulling me under. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close and let the world fall away. But the weight of it all, Ellie, Tom, the life she'd built, held me back. "You're married," I said, the words tasting like ash. "And Ellie, she's my best friend." "I know," Claire whispered, her voice breaking. "I know all of that. But when I'm with you, it's like I'm alive again. For the first time in years." The confession hung between us, raw and reckless. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and unsteady, drowning out the world. I took a step closer, my hand brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. Her fingers curled around mine, warm and trembling, and for a moment it was enough. But then a dog barked nearby, shattering the spell. Claire stepped back, her face pale, her eyes darting around like she was afraid someone had seen. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I shouldn't have come." She turned and walked away, her scarf trailing behind her like a ghost. I stood there, my hand still tingling from her touch, the leaves blurring through the tears I hadn't realized were falling. The days that followed were a blur of avoidance. Claire stayed late at school, grading papers or running book club meetings, anything to keep her out of the house. I buried myself in my photography, taking gigs for local businesses, snapping shots of coffee shops and farmers markets. But every click of the shutter felt hollow, like I was trying to capture something I'd already lost. Ellie noticed the tension but chalked it up to my moody artist vibe. She dragged me to a movie night at her place, insisting I needed to chill. The living room smelled of popcorn and her vanilla candle, the TV blaring some rom-com neither of us was watching. Claire was there too, sitting in the armchair across the room, her eyes fixed on the screen. She hadn't looked at me once. "Lynn, you're not even laughing," Ellie said, tossing a pillow at me. "This is like peak Sandra Bullock." I forced a smile, my stomach knotted. "Just not feeling it tonight." Ellie groaned, then turned to Claire. "Mom, back me up. Tell her to stop being such a grump." Claire's eyes flicked to me, just for a second, and the weight of her gaze made my chest ache. "Maybe she just needs some air," she said softly, her voice like a caress. I stood, mumbling something about getting water, and fled to the kitchen. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the linoleum. I gripped the counter, trying to steady my breathing, when I heard her footsteps behind me. "Lynn," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was close, too close, the scent of her lavender shampoo filling the air. "We can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" I snapped, turning to face her. My voice was louder than I meant, raw with frustration. "Pretending nothing happened? Ignoring the fact that I'm in love with you." Her eyes widened, her breath catching like I'd slapped her. The words hung between us, heavy and irreversible. I hadn't meant to say them, not like that, but they were out now, sharp and real. "Lynn," she said, her voice trembling. "You can't say things like that. I'm not free. You know that. Then why did you come to the park?" I shot back, my voice low but fierce. "Why did you say those things? You can't just dangle hope in front of me and then take it away." She looked away, her hands twisting together, her wedding ring glinting under the light. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I've spent years building a life, a family, and now you're unraveling it all." Her words cut deep, but there was no anger in them, only pain. I took a step closer, my voice softening. "I don't want to hurt you, Claire. I can't stop feeling this way." She met my eyes, and for a moment I saw her, the real her, not the teacher, not the mom, not the wife. Just Claire, raw and open, her heart laid bare. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be this person." Before I could respond, Ellie's voice called from the living room. Yo, where's my water? You guys getting lost in there? Claire stepped back, the moment shattering. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely audible, before turning and walking away. That night I couldn't sleep. The pull-out couch creaked under me as I tossed and turned, the memory of Claire's words burning in my mind. You're unraveling it all. Was I? Was I the one tearing her life apart? Or was it already fraying before I came along? I grabbed my phone, scrolling through photos I'd taken over the summer. There she was, in the background of a shot from Ellie's birthday barbecue. Claire laughing, her head thrown back, a glass of lemonade in her hand. I hadn't realized I'd captured her until now, but there she was, radiant and unguarded. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but I couldn't do it. The next morning I found a note slipped under my camera bag. Written in Claire's neat cursive. Meet me at the lake. 7 p.m. My heart raced. Was this a goodbye? A confession? I didn't know, but I knew I'd be there. The lake was a half-hour walk from Ellie's house. A quiet spot where the water reflected the fading light of the day. I arrived early, my boots sinking into the muddy shore. The air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Claire was already there, sitting on a weathered bench, her scarf wrapped tightly around her neck. Lynn, she said as I approached, her voice soft but steady. I needed to see you. Away from the house. Away from everything. I sat beside her, the bench creaking under our weight. The lake was still, the only sound the gentle lap of water against the shore. What's this about? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I've been lying to myself for years, she said. About who I am. About what I want. And then you came back and you made me see it. You made me feel it. My heart pounded, hope and fear colliding. What are you saying, Claire? She turned to me, her eyes glistening in the twilight. I'm saying I'm in love with you too. And I don't know what to do about it. The world seemed to stop at Claire's words. I'm in love with you too. They hung in the air, fragile as the mist rising off the lake. My breath caught, my hands trembling as I reached for her. But she pulled back, her eyes wide with fear and something else, resolve. Lynn, wait, she said, her voice shaky but firm. It's not simple. I'm married. I have a daughter. I can't just. I know. I cut in, my voice raw. I know it's not simple. But you just said you love me. Doesn't that mean something? She let out a shaky breath, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. The lake lapped gently at the shore. A soft rhythmic sound that felt too calm for the storm inside me. It means everything, she whispered. But it also means I could lose everything. I wanted to argue, to tell her we could figure it out, but the weight of her words stopped me. She wasn't just talking about Tom or Ellie. She was talking about her life, her identity, the years she'd spent building a facade. I leaned back, the bench cold against my spine, and stared out at the water. The air smelled of wet pine and her lavender shampoo. A mix that was starting to feel like home. Then what do we do? I asked, my voice barely audible. Pretend this never happened? Go back to stolen glances and awkward silences. Claire's laugh was bitter, almost a sob. I don't know if I can. But I don't know if I can do this either. I'm 42, Lynn. I've spent my whole life doing what I'm supposed to. And now you. The way she said you, like I was both a gift and a curse, made my chest ache. I wanted to reach for her again, to pull her close and make her forget the world, but I didn't. Instead I asked, what do you want, Claire? Not what you're supposed to want. What do you want? She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I saw her let go of the weight she carried. You, she said simply. I want you. The confession hit like a spark, igniting something reckless in me. I leaned in, my hand finding hers, and this time she didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold, trembling, but they curled around mine like a lifeline. The world narrowed to the warmth of her hand, the soft hitch of her breath, the way her eyes held mine like I was the only thing that mattered. But then her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She flinched, pulling her hand back to check it. Her face fell. It's Ellie, she said, her voice tight. She's asking where I am. The mention of Ellie was like a bucket of cold water. I leaned back, my heart pounding. You should go, I said, though every part of me screamed to keep her there. Claire nodded, but she didn't move. Lynn, I need time to figure this out, to figure out how to be honest with myself. With Ellie. With Tom. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling in my chest. Okay, I said. But don't shut me out. Please. She gave me a small, sad smile. I'll try. The next week was torture. Claire was distant, her smiles polite but guarded, her eyes avoiding mine. I threw myself into my work, taking photos of a local festival, the air filled with the smell of fried dough and cotton candy. But every shot felt flat, like I was seeing the world in grayscale. Ellie noticed my mood but didn't push, too caught up in her own life to dig deeper. One night I came home late, my camera bag heavy on my shoulder. The house was dark, the only sound the hum of the fridge. I assumed everyone was asleep until I saw a light under Claire's study door. My heart raced. I should have gone to bed, but my feet carried me to the door, my knuckles tapping softly before I could stop myself. Come in, Claire called, her voice tired. She was at her desk, papers scattered around her, her reading glasses perched on her nose. The room smelled of old books and coffee, a scent that was so her it made my chest tighten. Hey, I said, hovering in the doorway. You okay? She looked up, and for the first time in days her eyes softened. Not really, she admitted, setting her pen down. I've been trying to grade these essays, but all I can think about is you. My breath caught. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Claire, you can't keep doing this. You're killing me. She stood, crossing the room in 2 quick steps, and before I could process it, her hands were on my face, her lips on mine. The kiss was desperate, hungry, like she'd been holding it back for years. I kissed her back, my hands tangling in her hair, the world fading to the taste of her, the warmth of her, the soft sound of her breath against my skin. But then she pulled away, her eyes wide with panic. I'm sorry, she gasped, stepping back. I shouldn't have. Don't, I said, my voice shaking. Don't apologize for that. She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. Lynn, I can't keep doing this to you. To myself. I need to talk to Tom. I need to figure out who I am. I nodded, my throat tight. Then do it. But I'm not going anywhere. She gave me a look that was equal parts hope and fear. And I knew no matter what happened next, we were in too deep to turn back. The kiss lingered in my mind like a song I couldn't stop humming. It was reckless, perfect, and terrifying. Claire's lips, soft and urgent, had rewritten everything I thought I knew about myself. But the aftermath was a storm of silence. She avoided me for days, her car gone before I woke up, her study door locked when she was home. I felt like I was chasing a ghost, every creak of the house a reminder of her absence. Ellie, blissfully unaware, kept me busy with her usual chaos, planning a Halloween party, dragging me to thrift stores for costumes. The air smelled of fallen leaves and pumpkin spice, the town draped in orange and black. But my heart wasn't in it. Every laugh felt forced, every smile a lie. I wanted to tell Ellie everything, to spill the truth and beg for her forgiveness, but the words stayed lodged in my throat. How do you tell your best friend you're in love with her mom? One afternoon while Ellie was at work, I found Claire in the backyard, raking leaves into a pile. The air was crisp, the scent of earth and wood smoke heavy. She looked tired, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, her sweater sleeves rolled up. I hesitated, then grabbed a rake from the shed and joined her, the scrape of metal on grass filling the silence. You don't have to help, she said, not looking up. Her voice was flat, like she was trying to build a wall between us. I want to, I said, matching her rhythm. The leaves crunched under our rakes, a steady grounding sound. Claire, we need to talk. She stopped, her hands tightening on the rake. There's nothing to say, Len. I was wrong to kiss you. I'm married. I have a daughter. It's not fair to anyone. Her words stung, but I heard the tremor in her voice. the way her eyes flickered to mine before darting away. "Don't do that," I said, stepping closer. "Don't pretend it didn't mean anything. I felt it. You felt it." She let out a shaky breath, her rake clattering to the ground. "Of course it meant something," she snapped, her voice raw. "That's the problem. It means too much." I dropped my rake, closing the distance between us. The backyard was quiet, the only sound the distant hum of a lawnmower. "Then stop running from it," I said, my voice low but fierce. "You said you loved me. Was that a lie?" Her eyes met mine, and the pain there nearly broke me. "No," she whispered. "It wasn't a lie. But love doesn't fix everything. It doesn't change who I am. Or what I owe Ellie. Or Tom." "Tom's never here," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "He's gone for weeks, Claire. He doesn't see you. Not like I do." She flinched like I'd struck her, but she didn't back away. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I've spent 20 years with him. He's not perfect, but he's my life. Or he was." "Was," I echoed, my heart pounding. "What does that mean?" She looked down, her hands twisting together, her wedding ring catching the sunlight. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm trying to figure it out. But I need space, Lynn. I need to do this right." I wanted to argue, to pull her close and kiss her again, but the weight of her words stopped me. She wasn't just choosing between me and Tom. She was choosing between the life she'd built and the one she might want. I nodded, my throat tight. "Okay. But I'm not giving up on you." She gave me a small, sad smile, and for a moment, I saw the woman from the lake, open and unguarded. Then she picked up her rake and turned back to the leaves, the moment slipping away like sand. That night, Ellie threw her Halloween party. The house was packed, the air thick with the smell of cheap beer and candy corn. I wore a half-hearted vampire costume, my camera around my neck, snapping shots to keep my hands busy. Claire was there, dressed as a witch, her auburn hair hidden under a pointed hat. She laughed with Ellie's friends, her smile bright but brittle, and every time our eyes met, my heart ached. I was in the kitchen refilling my drink when I heard her voice behind me. "Nice fangs," she said, her tone light but strained. I turned, forcing a grin. "Thanks. Nice hat." She leaned against the counter, her fingers tracing the edge of a plastic cup. The kitchen was quieter than the living room, the bass from the speakers a dull throb. "Lynn, I talked to Tom," she said, her voice barely audible. My heart stopped. "And?" "He's coming home tomorrow," she said, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I told him we need to talk. About everything." The words hit like a tidal wave. Hope, fear, guilt, they crashed over me, leaving me breathless. "What does that mean for us?" I asked, my voice shaking. She looked up, her eyes glistening. "I don't know yet. But I'm trying to be honest. For the first time in a long time." Before I could respond, Ellie burst into the kitchen, her face flushed from dancing. "There you are. Come on, Lynn, you're missing the best part." Claire stepped back, her witch hat casting a shadow across her face. I followed Ellie, my heart pounding, the weight of Claire's words settling into my bones. Tomorrow everything could change. Tom's truck rumbled into the driveway the next morning, the sound low and guttural like a warning. I watched from the living room window, my camera forgotten on the coffee table, my stomach twisting. He was a broad-shouldered man, his flannel shirt stretched tight across his back, his beard flecked with gray. He looked tired, his boots heavy on the gravel, but there was a familiarity in the way he moved, like he belonged here. Like this was his home. And it was. Claire was in the kitchen, the clink of dishes masking the tremor in her hands. Ellie was upstairs, still asleep after the party, oblivious to the storm about to break. I wanted to run, to hide from whatever was coming, but my feet stayed rooted, my heart pounding like a drum. "Lynn," Claire said from the doorway, her voice steady but thin. She wore a plain sweater, her hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger, somehow vulnerable. "Can you give us some space today?" I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah, of course. Her eyes softened, a silent thank you, but there was something else there. Fear, maybe, or resolve. I grabbed my camera and left, the air outside sharp with the scent of frost and diesel from Tom's truck. I walked to the diner, the same one where Ellie had teased me weeks ago, and sat in the same booth, the vinyl still sticky, the coffee still bitter. But nothing felt the same. I tried to focus on my photos, editing shots from the festival, but my mind was with Claire. What was she saying to Tom? Was she telling him about us? About her? The thought of her unraveling her life, because of me, made my chest ache. I loved her, but I didn't want to be the one to break her world apart. Hours passed, the diner emptying and filling again. The clatter of plates and chatter of locals a dull hum. My phone buzzed, Ellie asking where I was. I texted back something vague, my fingers shaking. I couldn't face her yet. Not until I knew what Claire had done. When I finally returned to the house, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. The truck was still in the driveway, but the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath. I slipped inside, my boots soft on the hardwood, and found Claire in the living room alone. She was on the couch, her knees pulled up, a glass of wine in her hand. Her eyes were red, her face pale, but she looked lighter somehow. Like a weight had lifted, even if it left her raw. Lynn, she said, her voice soft but steady. Sit. I sat across from her, the coffee table between us like a barrier. The room smelled of her lavender shampoo and the faint tang of wine. What happened? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the glass. I told him everything. About me. About you. About who I am. My heart stopped. Everything. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine. I told him I'm not the person I've been pretending to be. That I've been hiding who I am for years. And that I love you. The words hit like a spark, igniting hope and fear in equal measure. What did he say? She let out a shaky laugh, almost a sob. He was angry, confused, hurt, but mostly he said he knew something was wrong. For years. He just didn't want to see it. I leaned forward, my hands clasped tightly. And now? He's staying at a motel tonight, she said, her voice breaking. He needs time. We both do. But I told him I wanted divorce. The word divorce hung in the air, heavy and real. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, but the weight of it all stopped me. Claire, are you sure? It's huge. She looked at me, her eyes glistening but fierce. I've never been more sure of anything. I've spent my whole life doing what I thought I was supposed to. And I'm done. I want to be honest. With myself. With Ellie. With you. My throat tightened, tears burning my eyes. What about Ellie? Claire's face crumpled, her voice dropping to a whisper. I haven't told her yet. I don't know how. But I will. Soon. I nodded, my heart aching for her, for Ellie, for the mess we'd made. I'm here, I said. Whatever happens, I'm here. She reached across the table, her hand finding mine, her fingers warm and steady. For the first time, her touch didn't feel like a secret. Felt like a promise. But promises are fragile. That night, I heard Ellie's footsteps on the stairs, heavy and deliberate. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her face pale. Lynn, she said, her voice cold. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. She knew. Ellie's eyes were like daggers, sharp and unyielding, as she stood in the doorway. The living room felt too small. The air thick with the scent of Claire's wine and the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. My heart pounded, each beat a countdown to the explosion I knew was coming. How long? Ellie asked, her voice low but shaking with anger. How long have you been lying to me? I opened my mouth but no words came. My hands were clammy, my throat dry. Ellie, don't, she snapped, stepping into the room. Her blonde curls were wild, her face flushed. I heard you. In the kitchen. I heard Mom on the phone with Dad. She said she's in love with you. With you, Lynn. The words hit like a slap, raw and stinging. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the couch and vanish, but there was no running from this. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Ellie laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that cut through the room. "You didn't mean for it? You're my best friend. She's my mom. And you're what? Sneaking around behind my back? Kissing her in our kitchen?" My face burned, guilt and shame twisting in my gut. "It wasn't like that," I said, but the words felt weak, hollow. "I love her, Ellie. I didn't want to, but I do." Her eyes widened like I'd struck her. "You love her," she repeated, her voice flat. "You're 24. She's 42. She's married to my dad. Do you have any idea how messed up this is?" I stood, my hands shaking. "I know it's messed up. I know it's wrong. But it's real, Ellie. I didn't choose this." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You could have chosen to tell me. You could have chosen not to destroy my family." The words landed like a punch, stealing my breath. I wanted to argue, to tell her it wasn't that simple, but the pain in her eyes stopped me. "Ellie, I'm so sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I never wanted to hurt you." She turned away, her shoulders shaking, and for a moment I thought she'd leave. But then she spun back, her voice rising. "And what about Mom? What happens when you get bored and move on? You're young, Len. You've got your whole life. She's giving up everything for you." The accusation stung, but it wasn't wrong. I'd asked myself the same question late at night, staring at the ceiling. What if I wasn't enough? What if I broke her? "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "But I love her, Ellie. I'm not going anywhere." She stared at me, her eyes searching mine, looking for something, truth, maybe, or regret. Then she shook her head and walked out, the front door slamming behind her. The sound echoed, sharp and final, like a door closing on our friendship. I found Claire in her study, her face buried in her hands, the room dark except for the glow of her desk lamp. The air smelled of old books and her lavender shampoo, a scent that used to comfort me but now felt heavy with grief. "She knows," I said, my voice hollow. Claire looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "I heard," she whispered. "I was coming to tell her, but she overheard me on the phone." I sank into the chair across from her, my chest tight. "She hates me." Claire shook her head, reaching for my hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling. "She's hurt. She's angry. But she doesn't hate you. She just needs time." I wanted to believe her, but the look in Ellie's eyes was burned into my mind. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice shaking. Claire took a deep breath, her hand tightening around mine. "I tell her the truth. All of it. About me, about us, about who I've been hiding from her all these years." I nodded, tears burning my eyes. "And Tom?" "He's gone for now," she said, her voice steady but soft. "But he'll be back. We'll figure out the divorce, the house, all of it. But Ellie, she's my priority." "I know," I said, my throat tight. "She's mine too." Claire's eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through the pain. "We'll get through this," she said, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "But it's going to hurt." I squeezed her hand, the weight of her words settling into my bones. "I'm not going anywhere," I said again, and this time it felt like a vow. The next morning Ellie was gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway, her room empty except for a note on her bed. "I need space. Don't call me." My heart sank, but I understood. I'd betrayed her, even if I hadn't meant to. Claire read the note in silence, her face pale, then folded it carefully and tucked it into her pocket. "She'll come back," Claire said, her voice steady but fragile. "She always does." I nodded, but the house felt emptier without her, the air heavy with the ghosts of our choices. Claire and I sat at the kitchen table, our coffee growing cold, the silence between us both a comfort and a wound. We were in this together now, for better or worse, and there was no going back. The weeks that followed were a quiet kind of chaos. Ellie stayed away, crashing with a friend from work, her text to Claire short and clipped. The house felt like a museum, full of memories we couldn't touch. Ellie's laughter, her off-key singing, the way she'd sprawl on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. Claire tried to keep busy, grading papers, cooking dinners we barely ate, but her eyes were always distant, searching for her daughter. Tom came by once, his face drawn, his voice low. They talked in the living room while I waited in the kitchen, the murmur of their voices a dull ache. The air smelled of coffee and the faint tang of his aftershave, a scent that didn't belong here anymore. When he left, Claire's shoulders sagged, but there was a resolve in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "It's over," she told me, her voice steady. "We're filing for divorce." I nodded, my heart a tangle of relief and guilt. "And Ellie?" I asked, my voice soft. Claire's face tightened, but she forced a smile. "I'm giving her time, but I'm going to talk to her. Soon." A month later, the air turned sharp, winter creeping into the Oregon hills. I'd moved out of Ellie's house, renting a tiny studio above a bookstore downtown. It smelled of old paper and coffee, a space that was mine but felt empty without Claire. We saw each other when we could. Quiet dinners at her place, walks by the lake, her hand brushing mine under the table. Each moment was a stolen treasure, fragile but real. One evening, Claire called me, her voice trembling with urgency. "Ellie's here. She wants to talk. Can you come?" I was at the house in 20 minutes, my boots crunching on the frost-covered gravel. The living room was warm, the fireplace crackling, but the air was heavy with tension. Ellie sat on the couch, her arms crossed, her eyes red but defiant. Claire stood by the window, her hands clasped tightly, her face a mix of hope and fear. "Lynn," Ellie said, her voice cold but steady. "Sit." I sat across from her, my heart pounding. The room smelled of wood smoke and Claire's lavender shampoo, a scent that grounded me even now. "I'm sorry," I started, but Ellie held up a hand. "I don't want apologies," she said. "I want to understand. Mom told me everything about her, about you, about how she's been hiding who she is. But I need to hear it from you." I took a deep breath, my hands trembling. "I love her, Ellie. I didn't mean to, but it happened. And I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But I'm not sorry for loving her. I'm only sorry for how it happened." Ellie's eyes searched mine, her jaw tight. "You're my best friend," she said, her voice cracking. "You were supposed to tell me everything. How could you keep this from me?" Tears burned my eyes, but I held her gaze. "I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of ruining everything. But I couldn't stop feeling this way." Claire stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "Ellie, this isn't just about Lynn. It's about me. I've spent my life pretending to be someone I'm not. And Lynn, she made me see who I could be." Ellie looked at her mom, her eyes glistening. "So what? You're just done with Dad? With our family?" Claire knelt beside her, her hand hovering before resting on Ellie's knee. "I'll never be done with you. You're my daughter. But I can't keep living a lie. I love Lynn. And I'm finally being honest with myself." The room was silent, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Ellie's shoulders shook, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be okay with this." "You don't have to be okay right now," Claire said, her voice breaking. "Just don't shut us out." Ellie looked at me, then at Claire, her face a storm of emotions. Finally she nodded, a small, reluctant gesture. "I need time," she said. "But I'm not gone." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Months later, spring crept into the town, the air soft with the scent of cherry blossoms. Ellie was back in the house, though things weren't the same. We talked, slowly rebuilding what we'd broken, but it was fragile, like a photograph still developing. Claire and I were together, openly now, her divorce papers signed, her life reshaping around the truth. One morning we walked by the lake, the water sparkling under the sun. Claire's hand was warm in mine, her laugh soft as she teased me about my terrible coffee-making skills. The world wasn't perfect. Ellie was still healing, Tom was still a ghost in the background, but for the first time it felt like ours. Lynn, Claire said, stopping to face me, her eyes bright. Thank you for seeing me. I smiled, my heart full. Thank you for letting me. We stood there, the lake lapping at the shore, the future uncertain but ours to face together.